Hey, I'm Coffee Guy Jake, the internet's least known home barista. It is currently about 2 a.m. That is why I'm wearing pajamas, but we'll move on right past that. Today I want to talk about simple brew methods that you can get into if you're trying to up your coffee game just a little bit. A lot of times people will look at coffee videos online, seeing these expensive pieces of equipment being used, thinking it's either unnecessary, too expensive, or too complicated to get into, and it may seem a bit too daunting to get into. I will say I don't necessarily find this equipment unnecessary, just kind of equipment needed if you want to get into espresso. But if you're just looking for a better cup of coffee, yeah, you don't need all this. At most, depending on what you're doing, you may want to get a coffee grinder, but we'll get into that. Improving your coffee brewing can be quite affordable, really easy to get into, and can be just as affordable as buying a cheap drip brewer, if not cheaper, and you'll have better coffee, especially if you learn the techniques a little bit. Well, we'll start out with first one that is probably the most expensive out of the three methods we're going to look at, and may have one barrier to it. AeroPress, basically plastic syringe. Got a little filter you put in here. This is the shower cap. Put the coffee in here, pour the water, plug it up. Takes about 2.5 minutes to brew, and then you gently press it down, and then you got a cup of coffee. Pretty simple, nothing crazy. The only downside is that you generally need a finer grind than what you get out of pre-ground bags. But if you already have a coffee grinder and you're using whole bean coffee from the grocery store, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. But if you don't, this may not be quite the one for you. There's not a lot of wiggle room with that one. Next step, the next one down, is pour over. You can get this or little cones as cheap as like $20, but sometimes depending on what you're getting, you can go 30, 40. Depends on what you want to get. You can potentially use the grind size you get out of pre-ground coffee. You just may need to use more coffee. Like you may need to use more coffee than you may want to. You won't be able to brew like a single cup because you need the water to take a certain amount of time to pass through the coffee for it to brew correctly. So, sorry, I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say. Non-scripted here. The water needs to go through the coffee at a certain rate. So you may need to use a higher amount of coffee, but if you're brewing for a lot of people or just brewing a large amount of coffee, that may not be an issue. Now the barrier of entry here is the technique required. There's a certain strategy to how you pour the water, not only like the motions you use, but also like how much per pour, and you may want to scale for this. You can't eyeball it as much as you may be able to with like the AeroPress or the last brewer we're going to talk about. And you may want to have something on hand that you can pour the water out of, that can pour the water out at a more steady rate and more smoothly, and that's where the issue comes in hand. Because I understand not everybody's going to have a gooseneck kettle. Most people aren't. They're just going to have a standard water kettle, and it's just going to be hard to pour the water correctly for this. Now, the last one that I do recommend to everybody when they ask me how to up their coffee game a little bit, make a slightly tastier cup, the French press. Now I will say with the French press, since there's no paper filter like you may have inside the AeroPress or with the pour over, you're going to have a slightly different taste to the coffee. It's not going to be as clear, and you may run into the issue of fines coming through, but there's a few techniques you can do that are really simple and not too complicated to avoid that. But with a French press, can be fairly cheap. I think the cheapest I've seen one is probably like 15 bucks, but you know, just figure average $15-20 for a French press. You can buy them anywhere, pretty cheap. Only issue you may have, since it's glass, these speakers like to break, but whatever. You can use the store-bought pre-ground coffee. There won't be really any issues with that. Works the same as drip in that regard. Though if you have a coffee grinder and you're grinding your own, I may recommend grinding slightly finer. I find it just tastes a little bit better. But regular grind size will work. And yeah, you just throw the coffee in here, pour your water in. You may want to stir it a little bit, just real quick to make sure the coffee sinks down. Stick the lid on, give it like 4 minutes. After the 4 minutes, here's what you can do to prevent a silty cup or a muddy cup, because like the tiny coffee particles, you know, the fines, like to come through. So what you do is scoop off the coffee that's floating on the top of the spoon, throw that in the trash, and then you press this back down just under the level of the liquid. Don't press it all the way down, just under, and then gently pour. And that will allow you to eliminate a lot of the fines. And if you're really serious about eliminating all the fines, you can pour into a second container and then pour it off, and not pour everything off. But I don't find that super necessary if you scoop off the extra grounds and don't press this all the way down, just gently pour. And improving your coffee can be really cheap and simple. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of extra equipment. It can be as simple as just getting something like this. But yeah, I know getting into specialty coffee or just improving your coffee a little bit can seem overwhelming or unnecessary, but if you want a slightly better cup of coffee, it can be really simple. And I just want to make sure it's as approachable as possible, because I love coffee, love everything about it. I want to share the love, and yeah, I think that's all. If I keep talking, I'll just start rambling. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, see you guys.
Thanks for watching, and for more content like this, check the description down below, and comment what your favorite drink is. And as always, stay caffeinated.